Hey guys, Joe Holland here. Let's talk baitcasters. You're in the market for a baitcaster. Let's say you never bought one before, you're looking to upgrade and maybe move up a couple levels. There's a lot of stuff to learn about them, a lot of stuff to know. I can help you out here. We'll talk over some of the features on them, some of the things to watch out for, some of the things to look for, and just give you a basic understanding of baitcaster reels. Check it out. So pretty much the first thing you got to decide when you're in the market for a bait casting reel is what is your budget. How much you're willing to spend. Pick a price range, and then you could shop within that budget. So it's nice now. It used to be in the older days when there was a handful of companies making bait casting reels, and it was maybe they had one or two in the lineup. So you were looking at what their budget was, not as much as what yours was. Nowadays, it's awesome. There's so many different manufacturers making reels that cover anywhere from $40 up to $400 or even higher. So you could find the best reel in that budget range that you're shopping with. And with a little help from me and a little research on your end, I'll help you get into the best possible reel in your budget range. Another important thing to think of and take into consideration when you're buying a bait casting reel is comfort. If it's comfortable in your hand, how it sets up with the knobs, the reel handle, the size of it, the shape of it, and make sure it fits you. That's a personal decision. There's several ones that I like. I kind of gravitate a little bit more towards the low profile, super low profile reels, but I grew up using like the round reels, so I'm used to those too. But as far as comfort goes, go to a retailer, go support your local retailers and try one out. They'll put one on a rod for you if they don't have the setup with like the short rod. Put it on the handle and pick it up, put it in your hand and spin it. Find something in your price range and look at several different reels and spin the thing. Put it on there, see if it fits your hand. Depress the button, spin the reel, make a couple mock casts because it's something that you're going to use a lot. And comfort's like we used to not worry about comfort because there was only one or two reels on the market back in the old days, and they were all like a certain size, and what it was is what it was, and you just got used to that. Nowadays, you don't have to deal with that. Nowadays, you can get one that fits you perfectly and something you're going to be comfortable with, for different casts, pitching, throwing long, sidearm, whatever, flipping, pitching, finesse. Everything is covered now with the new reels. So find something that's comfortable, get it in your hand, get out to the store, check them out, and it's going to be hard for you first timers who've never gotten one because you don't have anything to compare it to. So my advice there is, check them out a couple different times, and throw it for a while. You might find after a little while it's not the perfect fit. Well, the nice thing is there's a market for bait casting reels. You can sell that thing and get another one or just add it to the rest of them. I can't even guess how many of these things I have, and you could always use one more, right? So piggybacking on comfort, let's look at differences in reel knobs and handles. That's something that's really important to the overall comfort of a reel and its performance. So right here with the Custom Pro SLP, they put on a different type of reel knob on this one, and I wasn't sure about it at first. I got one, picked one up, tried it, and now I have several here. I loved it. So this has the wind grip on it. Each knob is going to be made out of a different material. So this one is the wind grip made for loose. It's soft, tacky, and like a foam, and then there's an outer foam on the outside. But what makes this one unique is the size of that handle and the shape of it, of the knob itself, is round and tapered down. So I'd never thrown one of those before. I said, well, I got to try it. Really liked it. I pitched with it and flipped with it a lot. Feels like it's easy to grab. It's easy to get a handle on, and you feel like you have a lot more power when you're reeling that in, and it just covers your wrist a little bit better. Several different reels, several different knobs will help out. So like the magnesium right here, this one's like a semi-flat, semi-round knob on that. It's made with a high-density foam and cork. Another one that's ergonomically comfortable, fits in your hand, and it's another one that you grab and it just goes right to a flat position and reels. A lot of these things are personal preferences. I don't see huge advantages over different styles of knobs. It's just what you're used to or what you're comfortable with. That's another one there. The BB1 that has a perfectly flat spade style knob on it, flat. And that's another one. If you're cranking, you might want a little bit wider, flatter one just to hold on to when you kind of get in that groove when you're cranking. So those are the different ones to choose from for knobs. As far as handles, this is one of the originals, an aluminum handle right here. Everything comes a little bit different size depending on what you're looking for inches per turn and gear ratio, and just how the reels themselves are designed. Most of the high money reels and the real high quality reels have switched over to like a carbon fiber handle, and what that does is it reduces a ton of weight on the reel, but it maintains the strength, and you're not going to break that handle with the carbon fiber. A really important feature to any bait casting reel is the gear ratio associated with that reel. Now, if you're not familiar with that, I'll give you a quick explanation. Basically, there's a number on the side or on the box. Some common numbers that you might see are 6.4 to 1, or 6 1 to 1, or 7 1 to 1. It's always to 1, and what that means is the 1 is the exact rotation of the handle is one rotation, and for that one rotation, the spool itself is spinning the other number. So if it's a 7.1 to 1, for every time I spin this one full time in a circle, this spins 7.1 times, and I'll show you that there. So gear ratio is really important. You might say, well, like anything, is a higher number better? Well, it depends on what you want to do with that reel. When I'm crankbaiting, I want the lowest gear ratio possible because I want to keep that bait as deep as possible in the strike zone. And basically what I'm trying to do with different gear ratios is I'm trying to reel the same speed with my hand, on my body physically, reel the same speed with every different lure I'm using if I'm going to keep something moving. So if I'm throwing a deep diving crankbait, I want to be reeling this fast. If I'm throwing a buzzbait and want to keep it on top and really fast, I want to be reeling this fast. The days of that 3 to 1 gear ratio, where you had to, if you want to keep a buzzbait on top, you had to reel it like this, or as fast as you possibly could, wear everything out. Those days are gone. Now you can buy like an 8-5 to 1 or a 9 to 1 gear ratio and spin at this speed, and that buzzbait's going to be sitting on top, going like that, or a whopper plop, or whatever you want to keep on top, going fast, or even underwater fast. Some like the most common gear ratio that I kind of judge everything off is that 6-4 to 1. That's a pretty standard gear ratio in the market now. It's one of my favorite for swim jigs, spinner baits. I'll throw it on top waters. It's pretty much the most versatile gear ratio. When I go lower than that, it's select for like crankbaits or deep diving crankbaits or something that I want to work really slow and slower than average. When I go higher in that six range, I'm looking at something that I want to work ultra fast, like a buzzbait or even a topwater that I'm going to keep moving, or even on a flipping or pitching reel. I like to have it fast, so that way, basically you're, bam, the lure's in there. You just punch through a mat and you have that up and down yo-yo a couple times, and I want it back just as quick as possible so I can make the next flip and the next flip and the next flip. So that's why I'd use a higher gear ratio. So figure out what you're going to be using the reel for, and then match that gear ratio to what you're going to be using. Now these, I have, 14, 13 reels here, several different types of reels and models, and in those select models, I might have 3 or 4 different gear ratios in the same reel. So you're looking at that Team Lose Pro Magnesium there, and this one is in a 6-8 to 1. And this one right here, that's another 6-8. This one here is a 6-8, and this one here is a 7.5, and it says it right there, on just about every reel you buy, no matter what the brand is, it'll say it right on the handle, so when you pick it up, you'll know what it is. Like, that's a 6.8, this is a little faster reel, that's a 7.5. In here, on the SLP, the new SLPs, I have some 8.3s, I believe, is the fastest that we're making right now in those. So, yeah, there's an 8.3 to 1 right there. So, gear ratio, that's not something you want to overlook. It's really important to buy in a reel to kind of fit in what you're throwing on it. Another code you're going to see when you're looking at bait casting reels is IPT. That stands for inches per turn. It's pretty closely related to the gear ratio, but it changes reel to reel depending on how wide these knobs are, how big the spool itself is, and what gears are on that reel. So inches per turn is important if you're looking at different reels to kind of match them up with what you're doing. So like this 8.3 to 1 ratio SLP that I'm showing you right here, this thing brings in 33 inches per turn. So for one exact turn on that handle, I just brought in 33 inches of line. That's with an 8-3 to 1. Now there's other companies might have an 8-3 to 1 that brings in 31 or 30. So you can match them up to what you want to throw. And for example, here's the BBZ1. This is one of my favorite cranking reels from Lou's Speed Spool. This thing brings in 21 inches per turn. So we're looking at a 5-1 to 1 gear ratio. And for every time I spin that thing one time, it brings in 21 inches. So, comparing these two reels, this thing, every time I turn it, brings the lure 1 foot closer than this one will. And this is, like I mentioned earlier, good for cranking, and it's even listed right there on the spool. So when you see IPT, break it down. It stands for inches per turn, and by turn it means 1 full turn, and how many inches that brought in on the spool itself. Another number you're going to see when you're looking to buy a reel there'll be like a high number next to a low number, like 110/12. What that's telling you is basically the capacity of the spool on that reel. So the 12's the pound test diameter. Usually it's judged off a mono, and then the 110 is the yards, the amount of line that you could fit on there. So if you're a bass guy and you're looking anything in that 100, anything over 100 at 12-pound test, will get you covered. Braid obviously 65, but it's got the diameter of maybe like a 12 or 14, so you could kind of figure from there. Basically, if you got 80 yards on this line, you'll never cast it out. That's 240 feet. A 100-foot cast is a very long cast. You can bomb a spook or something heavy a lot further, but for the most part, you don't need a lot more. And a lot of these reel manufacturers have lowered those numbers over the years. What that does is it cuts down on the amount of line you have to put on there, but it also cuts down on the weight of that reel. So we're changing out the line a lot faster these days than in the old days, and you don't really need as much line on there. So you're not buying a ton more line, you're not wasting line. They put more than enough, more than what you need. So kind of match that up to what you think you're going to be doing. If you're trolling, you're going to need probably more than 110 at 12. Or 110 at 14, but you don't really need much more than that for bass fishing or just general casting. So when a lure is traveling at a different rate of speed as your spool, say the lure's going slower than your spool's turning, the line's going to back up in there, really create a mess. We call it a bird's nest, a rat's nest, several different names for it. Some are a little bit more colorful than others. The key to not getting those, there's a couple things. Thumb control, from throwing the baitcaster, that's on you. But a lot of the really high quality reels come with several adjustment points, so you can control the speed of that spool according to the weight of the lure you're using, or how fast you throw it, or how hard you cast it, or how windy the day is outside. So a couple things you want to look for when you're looking to get into a reel are the type of adjustments it has, and if it even is able to adjust. And the higher, the more your budget is, the better the adjustments are going to be. So this one, for example, this has a tension knob which controls a shaft on the spool itself on the inside of the reel right here. And you could hear it. It has an audible on this one. This is the Pro Magnesium. And you could hear that as you click it and you could fine tune, adjust that reel to handle whatever conditions you're fishing in or what you're throwing for a bait. And then on the outside of this reel, which is pretty cool, this has the adjustable centrifugal braking system. It's got a 6-pin system on the inside that controls friction to slow that spool down if it gets spinning too fast. And you set that on the outside. There's 27 points where you can set that for anywhere from free spool to super max tight, which will slow that spool down even more as the lure's in the air. And it gives you a lot more control. It makes you more efficient as a fisherman. You're not picking out birds' nests like you used to in the old days. And it really increases your chances at catching a fish if you're more effective with your reel. So those are a couple things to look for. Some reels have magnet braking systems. Another a good way to add friction to the spool to keep it from spinning too fast, but most of them turn to these like a 6-pin or 12-pin or a 4-pin system on the inside that is adjustable on the outside. Pretty well standard for baitcasters in the industry now, across the board, all manufacturers, is a star drag system. And what you're looking at is this little smaller knob in here. That's adjustable, as you could hear it click. And that's my drag for this reel. So you could adjust it as you're reeling in a fish. If you get a bite and you're bringing them in and you got a giant, you want to loosen it, you could adjust it. That's pretty cool to have that star handle on there. You'll see that on most of the baitcast reels you try out or you look at has that already built in. Now, a couple of the numbers you want to look for, not everybody publishes, but you're looking for a drag system that'll give you at least 10 pounds of pressure. 10 to 14 is a good number. Anything over than that's great too. Don't get fooled by just the number alone. Try it out. If you can get some line on that thing and pull it. It's very important to have smooth drag, and you want a smooth, steady drag all the way out, because if that fish is peel and drag and it catches up, that's going to create just that little bit of line slack in there for him to throw that hook, or even it'll create a little bit more. It might break your line. So a smooth drag is important. Look for carbon fiber drag plates. Look for that written somewhere when you're researching your reels. Most of them come with it now, and the higher value a reel you buy, the better the drag system's going to be. So as you research reels, you're going to see a bearing count, and you'll see anywhere from, I think, 11 or 12 now down to like 4 bearings. And it doesn't really mean that the reel's a better reel than another reel if it has more bearings in it. There's kind of like a quantity over quality thing going on there with marketing. But what you're looking for when you read about the bearings on a reel or you research it, look to make sure those bearings are either sealed or shielded or double shielded. Those are higher quality bearings. Those will get you a smoother reel, a smoother drag system, a smoother everything on that reel. So bearings, what you're looking for, anywhere from like 8 to 11, and make sure that they're high quality bearings. That's something that you want to do a little research on before you buy a reel. Pretty well standard now on bait casting reels across the board are anti-reverse or zero reverse. This is really important. Don't buy a reel that doesn't have this, either anti-reverse or zero reverse. But what you see is this reel can only go forward. I can't push it backwards. I can only go forwards, and that's really important. The older reels would have like a dog in there where it would have to back up for the reel to catch, like if you wanted to set the hook or bring it somewhere. And what that would do is that would let a little bit of line loosen up, and then you have to be careful of that for your next cast. But nowadays, most of the reels have that. Don't buy one without it. It'll make you a better fisherman and more efficient if your line stays tight to that spool at all times, and that's what that zero reverse does. So anywhere, if I'm reeling this in and I get a bite at any time, even if I take my hand off this knob and I go back to set the hook, there's not going to be any slack or play in that. That's right there. It can't pull anymore. So that's really important too. Look for zero reverse, anti-reverse. With baitcasters, as much as anything, you get what you pay for. Meaning, the more you spend, the better the reel it's going to be for the most part. If you do a little bit of research, that's how it works. So, a lot of guys out there that don't know the differences, and if you're entry level, I would suggest starting in that $70 to $120 range. There's great reels out there across the board. All manufacturers. Lew's makes incredible reels from $50 all the way up to $300. But I'll tell you a couple of the differences from the high money ones down to the lower end ones. So weight is a big issue. Like this reel right here. This is the SLP. This is under 6 ounces. The magnesium is actually the lightest reel that Lew's makes. It's I think it's 5.8 or 5.6 ounces. It's under that 6 ounce range, and that makes a big difference for feeling the fish, for sensitivity, just overall comfort. Using a reel all day, lighter is better in this world, in the world of fishing with reels and with your rods. So what they did is they built like a magnesium frame. It's got a carbon 45 side plates, a carbon handle. Everything on it's lighter and stronger than the older reels. So that's one of the things you get, when you pay for a better reel. The bearings in this are double shielded. You get better bearings, higher quality bearings. Just everything's a lot nicer. It's basically just like a car, when you're looking at like a Lamborghini as compared to like a Pinto. They've added some features to theirs. Lew's has. You have your speed keeper right there. That's pretty cool. So that way, that just flips up when I need it. And what I do is I put my hook either on the outside of that or through this hole. And when I'm fishing or not using it, I just flip it out of the way and it clicks in. I like that because in the old days, you used to just put your hook there or somewhere on your rod and, would scratch it up, or you might nick your line there or hit your pawl or your worm gear or your opening there. So you don't want to do that. So that's pretty sweet, that feature there. On the side, we have this actually has the line gauge. It'll tell you what you're using for line. You just set it according to mono, fluoro, or braid, and you can set to the pound test, and it stays there. So whenever you pick up your reel, you know, if you're not sure if you put 17 on that reel or 15-pound test, you have it on the side of that. So that's another pretty cool feature that this reel comes with, the speed keeper that. And then the audible clicks that you hear on all the fine-tune adjusting this reel does, that's another thing that helps too. It's kind of like when you're setting a scope and you go a quarter, each click is a quarter inch at 100 yards. Well, you could do that with your reels now too. So your tension knob, if I want to really fine-tune that when I'm fishing, you could hear it. You could hear it clicking there. My ACB system on the side, you hear that click too, and then your drag system too. You could feel that click and hear that click too. So those are a couple of things. Just general overall quality. You know, it's worth it if you have the money to buy a high quality reel. The features that you're going to have on this thing are much better than the lower end reels too. But you do have to get inside your budget and pick a reel that fits you, that you're comfortable with, and maybe work your way up.